Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Viral Hit, Season 1, Episode 8. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode. So let's break it down. First and foremost, I was under the impression this season was only going to be 8 episodes. I thought it was a weird spot to end, but I was like, well, I guess that is what it is. But it seems like this is supposed to be maybe potentially 12 episodes. I just checked on IMDb. It says 12 episodes. I hadn't really... Some other places were still saying 8, but I don't know like when the next episode is potentially going to come out. But we got a preview of it, so it's, you know, I guess maybe it's just some stuff hasn't been finished yet production-wise, so maybe it still needs to be animated, yada, yada, yada. We'll kind of say that conversation for later, but either way, we're picking up with the fight, and yeah, we're continuing and then eventually concluding a fight between Taehoon and Hobin. And so Hobin's getting the crap beat out of him, but once again, it was just for the purposes of now that the video's reached the 3-minute mark, now we can start placing ads in it, so we're good. So Hobin is trying his best against Taehoon because it's like, right, he's using his calf kick and stuff, but then it's also the fact is that despite limiting his mobility, Taehoon is still a pro, and so he's using the mobility of his body to, like, instead of sliding on the water, like, well, he's sliding, but he's using that as momentum to, like, close in the distance between him and Hobin, so he's still able to maintain a lot of his mobility despite the circumstances, and Hobin's getting the crap beat out of him. But it ends up being that thing of the same tactic that Hobin used against Paco. It's like, right, let's go for the calf kicks. I keep calling out the name so that you get distracted thinking like, okay, I'm going for another calf kick. But you're like, oh, he's going to go for the overhead punch. But instead, he uses not just the tackle he used previously, a new tackle, the double leg tackle. And it leads into like a chokehold. But the problem is, as Samdak explained, Hobin got a little too excited. That ends up being like his biggest downfall a lot of times in fights. It's also because like you're caught up in it, like you're just kind of like, oh man, I need to do this, and it's like you're supposed, especially as an amateur, you need to like stay focused, because you losing your composure against a pro is when like you make fatal mistakes. And the biggest mistake that because Taehoon was like doing all this. He was letting Hobin like land all these blows and stuff because it was all for the purpose of getting Hobin into a position where he could snatch one of Hobin's shoes. So it's like, cool, now I've got this waterproof shoe that I'm not going to slip on either. And it's like now it allows him to start using his kicks fully and not have to worry about anything, which is obviously very disheartening for Hobin, because it's like the one advantage he had in this fight is kind of gone now. It's like now Taehoon can use his legs. And obviously for Hobin, it's like, well, his right leg is his dominant leg, so he has to use that because that's the shoe he was, you know, rushing for time, so he got what shoe he could. But because he's not using his dominant leg, it's not like Taehoon can go full force. His kicks are still like nasty though, so Hobin wants to close the distance, but the problem is like his leg, and I like how they animate that too. And I'm sure they probably did the same thing in the webtoon, but I feel like you're able to really see the scale of like what that meant for someone like Hobin, where it's like seeing how long his leg is in his reach. It just kind of feels like, right, there's like so much distance between us, and Hobin can't clear it, especially with how fast Taehoon is. And what seemed like it might have been in Hobin's favor has completely shifted. It changes the tone of the fight, and Hobin's like getting his ass whooped, you know? At the same time this is all going down, you have two different things. One, you have obviously Gall like being the one kind of giving it like breakdown by breakdown of like the fight and understanding everything of like, yeah, the reason why, like, right, just taking down Taehoon wasn't going to be that easy. He's a pro fighter. And at the same time, who's also watching Museong, who's watching with Boomy, who claims to not have any interest until Hobin hit the move, and she's like, oh my god, he did it. And Museong's like, oh, I thought you said you didn't care. It's like, because she's mad at Hobin for ignoring her, but like Museong understands why, you know? And it's like, because in his mind, in Hobin's mind, it's like, oh, I screwed the pooch with. It's like he can't bring himself to be around her because it's like, right, my pride was hurt, and I feel like such a loser in front of her. I can't ever be in front of her again. And for him, it's probably a thing of, last time he saw her, she looked at him with like kind of pity. Obviously, she was concerned, but in his eyes, it just looked like pity. And it's like, you're the last person in this world I ever wanted to see me that way. And so He's been avoiding her for that purpose, but he also thinks like, right, she'd have like any slight, because he also kind of has a hard time believing Boomy has interest in him until like Snapper brought that up a couple episodes ago. It was like, oh no, like in that episode in particular, being like, no, she's like obviously into you, and because of that, now he's thinking like, well, if she had any interest in me, it's gone now. But it's like, obviously she was super pumped when she's like, oh my god, he landed a move. What does that mean? He won? But Museong, being trained as he is, knows like, right, Hoban like didn't stick the landing with the move, and now the fight's one side to the point Museong turns off the stream. He's like, yo, I don't want you to see that because you don't want to see what's about to happen. And also Taehoon, like you have the audience, like the people commenting, being like, yo, stop the fight, like Snapper screaming for the fight to stop, and then Hoban takes one of Taehoon's back kicks to the chest, despite everything he's doing to try and still fight, but he's also like broken and disheartened. I mean, before that though, when he felt like kind of like, so like, oh my god, it's over, Snapper called out to him. It's like, right, like, aren't you going to do this? Don't you want money? And then he got up and everyone's like, oh yeah, he's a money grabber. Like, of course that's going to be what's going to motivate him. But then like, yeah, the fight's just a one-sided slaughter fest, and Hoban gets knocked down again. But despite everything, he gets back up because his training did benefit him. Like, he was able to survive a full, like, obviously it wasn't full power, but one of Taehoon's back kicks, even without his dominant leg, is still pretty damn powerful. And so Hoban still stands up and he's like, I'm going to see this through. And everyone's like wondering, like, is it really about the money? And for Hoban, it's not. It's like he's thinking about his friend. He knows that feeling, and he wants to kind of get justice for his friend. That's his pure motivation for this fight. And it's still but he also not letting Snapper know about it, because it's like, hey, I'm not going to hurt your pride by letting you know, like, I heard you crying and that you're my reason. Because I'm also not going to put your business on blast on stream too. So. But yeah, Taehoon tries his move against Hoban, and I like, once again, the whole incorporating every aspect of his training, that in this moment, hanging on the bar in his closet ended up allowing him to dodge Taehoon's attack when he was like, yeah, I'm in this, in the stall for the toilet, and ended up jumping over it, and in that moment, getting the advantage against Taehoon and using a different choke. It's like the baseball choke this time, and keeping at it until the point Taehoon had to tap out. But then, like, because he is an amateur, like, in his mind, he immediately did this. He's not recognizing the tap out because he's so focused on choking him out for the 10 seconds. I'm not going to let go. Because what Samdok says is like, this is a street fight. Like, if it's during a match, sure, the bell would ring and you'd be able to break it up. This is a street fight. If you let go too soon, he will get up and you'll be in a disadvantage again. And it's like, this is that Hail Mary move of like, you messed up the first time, you luckily got him the second time, but you won't get a third shot if you mess this up, because Taehoon will know what to expect. And he's tapping away, and then you have Snapper telling him to stop, but in Hoban's mind is like, no, I'm going to keep going. And he's counting and he's counting, and he gets to 10 and finally lets go. It's because it even says, like, right, the adrenaline's kicking in and he's not hearing even Snapper scream out to him. And like I said, it was right for him to do that because Taehoon is tapping out. He's still conscious enough, like, he might be getting choked out, but if he has conscious and awareness enough to be tapping out, it's still like no, he's not completely out yet, so I need to knock him out. And he did, and ultimately comes out the winner. And then at the same time, we find out, kind of tying into why Taehoon's a little bit of why he's the asshole he is, because his dreams of MMA kind of like came to a screeching halt when he went up against an opponent who did the same thing to him, put him in a chokehold, and that was Museong. And it's like, yeah, even the commentator was like, yeah, he hit a wall, and that's why he quit. It's like he found someone who could, like, because he always dominated his opponents, and in that moment, he was dominated. And it's like, they even say this about Hoban, was like, he went into this thinking Hoban was beneath him. Didn't even look at him as human. He thought, like, right, this is someone that's going to satiate my, like, bloodlust. But because of that, because of his underestimation, he ended up, like, losing this fight. And he's never lost against anyone except for Museong. So it crushes him even more in that moment. And especially when history's literally repeating itself like that. But it's that, yeah, so it kind of showcases he walked away from the pro circuit just because of that loss, because it, that is part of, like, fighting too. Like, when you lose, it shakes you, like, because you're like, right, you felt so unbeatable, especially Taehoon. He's got, like, an inflated ego of, like, yeah, I'm hot shit, because for most of the time he has been hot shit until he hit that literal brick wall called Museum, and now it's happened again. It's going to shake you to your core, like, I guess I'm not as tough as I thought. And he kind of, especially because it's like, right, Museum is a pro, but here you are going up against regular people. No one can stand against you. But now it's like, no, this regular, not like this amateur like guy who's barely learning how to fight was able to beat you. Someone who should have never been able to beat you was able to. And so Taehoon wakes up to find Snapper and Hoban massaging his legs, like, to make sure he's okay. It's like, no, Snapper's like, we should have made sure to get out of here. It's like, understandable why Snapper would have that perspective. It's like, I got a couple cracked ribs that was to be like, let's get away from this psychopathic piece of shit. But it's like, no, like, well, Taehoon does threaten him and tries to, like, choke them out. Hoban in particular, but Hoban's like, I just want to make sure you're okay, and also here's your watch. It must be really important to you. And in that moment, like, Taehoon just like, fine, just, you can keep your channel, just, I don't ever show your face in front of me again. And it's like, wow. Once again, came out victorious. Didn't seem like he would, and everyone being like, wow, thank you for giving me courage again. That was actually amazing. It was like, yeah, he kind of lucked out, but still, that was impressive. Everyone's excited for him. And then it's like, oh my God, Hoban, you're sweating so much. And they immediately jump into an ad. They're like, oh, and I love, like, one of the comments, like, someone bring Taehoon back in here. And some other people are like, actually, I feel like I need that product. I'm gonna go to the drugstore. Someone else is like, same. And they're like, it's because some people are like, is this really the appropriate tie-in? And I loved, I'd actually completely forgotten about the sponsor bit. That's so good. It's like they did it and they ended the stream. Everything was a success, you know. And then you have once again kind of getting a little peek at goals, like, you know, editing a little bit. It's like, oh, we're gonna add in the subtitles. We're gonna put the ad here. She was also a little bummed because she's like, oh yeah, like, it's kind of sucky that Hoban's kind of getting beat up, like, you getting beat up so much. And it's like, yeah, you had me worried. It's like, oh, interesting. So that was pretty neat. But yeah, it's like the video got like 3 million views. They went up to 190,000 subscribers. So Hoban's like, not only is he upside down, but the like body spray thing, medicinal like body spray thing that they were sponsored by, there's like 4 bottles that are upside down doing headstands too. So it all worked out in the end. It feels like, oh, this is good. We're good. And, you know, we're seeing much more success. But as the episode kind of ends, being like, yeah, but there are greater threats on the horizon. You know, that was just kind of like the beginning of, like, there's more tragedy. So, like, catching a glimpse of the preview. So there's that thing that I was talking about. I was like, I thought it happened before the Taehoon fight. Maybe it does, and I'm misremembering the order. Once again, it's been a hot minute since I read like early viral hit. So I might just be misremembering the order. But one of the things that's coming up is the thing I was thinking about. It's a thing that ultimately ends up revolving around Rumi, because obviously we hadn't gotten much of her. That's why I was like, oh, like, because I know that storyline involves them getting closer to Rumi. So I was like, are we really not going to do that? And it's like, okay, so we are doing. So it seems like it's going to be a very like accurate, like, let's say, with the exception of some little changes. I feel like maybe someone can correct me. Manga and even manhwa that do get anime adaptations, it seems like more often than not, there are your cases where it's like, nah, they kind of completely go a different way. Plus, there's also the element of like filler episodes and stuff. But for the most part, I guess like a lot of, I guess there hasn't been too many instances where I've read the manga and watched the anime, and watching anime to kind of be able to do a proper comparison. This is like this and like Tower of God are like rare examples. And Lookism, it was like, it had been so long in between that I didn't remember. So it's stuff like that. And Sweet Home, I can now have a more accurate comparison if I go back retrospectively throughout the season, yada, 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 so on and so forth, right? So, but it seems like this is a very faithful adaptation. The 2 things that are coming, I'm like, all right, those are the 2 things I remembered. Like I said, the thing with the people the thing that I thought happened before Taehoon, like, I guess it happens after Taehoon, I just didn't remember. But I did bring this up. It does seem like they still are doing the whole, like, they completely removed the whole tank top element from the story, which I think is so interesting. Like I said, I think that was introduced in Paco's fight, and it does pop up in the fight against Taehoon as well, I think. But they completely removed that. Like I said, I guess it's just because it's such a small bit in the webtoon in the grand scheme of things. I guess they were like, no point in, like, bothering to put that into the anime. I don't know. So it's like, right, there is more story to go. Like I said, I thought it was such an interesting spot to end it with Taehoon, but I was like, I guess that's the decision they made. Because I'm ready to be like, oh, the season finale. once again, like when I first started the anime, and I thought I looked it up other places like throughout the season too, but no, there's also other places are still saying like 8 episodes, but I guess because no information's really come up about episode 9. At least once again, I did like a very light Google search. I didn't do too deeply, so I don't know if it's going to be a hot minute for whatever reason before we get like the rest of the season. Like I said, that seemed like what I was seeing, at least on IMDb, it's like 9, 10, 11, and 12. So there still are episodes left. And then we even got it, like I said, in a preview. So it's like, yeah, there is at least some of the episode done. If not all of it, at least some of it's animated, made it enough for them to have something for the next time. So it wasn't like a season finale. So, but I'm excited to see where things go. I should also quickly talk about this too. I did not know this. I didn't realize Viral Hit is done. I did not know that. Like, apparently the manhwa ended, like, I guess, like, earlier this year. Probably, like, a couple months back. Because it's only, like... Because the last time I looked on the Webtoon app, it was, like, at 200. Like, and that shows you how long ago it was. But it's like, yeah, apparently it's only 218. I think in my head, I was thinking it was going to be longer because Season 1's, like, 135. So, like... But to be fair, it's like some Webtoons are like that. The Season 1 to Season 2 can have such a massive difference. Like, the one I think about more recently I was reading was, like... Girls of the Wild. There's a massive difference between how many chapters are in Season 1 of that versus Season 2. So that's where it's kind of like surprised. I was like, oh, I thought Season 2 would be at least as long as Season 1. But it's like, I mean, it's not that much shorter, but it's still like, you know, so I think that's interesting. Like I said, I was like at 152. The only reason why I haven't read it in a while, so I just didn't want to get too caught up. But knowing like, oh, it's already been done for a couple months, I'll probably like burn through that at some point in the near future. But yeah, I'm excited to get. I mean, for one, I'm excited to know like, oh, we are getting more Viral Hit. Like I said, not that's some BS, but it seems like we're getting more Viral Hit. Like we still got a couple more episodes. Because I was like, oh man, are we not gonna like have to wait for like a Season 2? Which at the time of me recording this, it is March 30th. Because it's it hasn't been announced whether or not the show's getting renewed for a second season yet. So hopefully, fingers crossed. Because obviously, even when we get to the end of this season, even by then, like I don't know the percentages, but you're probably only going to be doing like this first season is probably only going to cover like maybe a third or maybe half of Season 1 story, because like the other, like the big overarching story that takes precedent like later in Season 1, I could see that whole storyline being an entire all of, like if the show gets a Season 2, I could see that storyline being all of Season 2. So that's what I'm like, I could see, you know, so that's what I'm like, I'm thinking. But either way, I'm excited to see what's next. And like I said, I got ideas, but I don't remember every single thing. But I still have a decent enough memory of like what we saw in the promo to be like, okay, so that's what's happening, and getting some developments on the Gaul front about where her heart lies. As I'll kind of leave it at that. So it's going to be interesting to see where all of that takes us going forward into the next episode, whenever it does ultimately air. I'll look into it a little bit more after I post this episode, and then I'll like probably like comment on, oh, like this is most likely when the episode's coming out, if there's anything that says anything at all about episode 9. But yeah. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.